Dust billowed behind my tires as I drove into Granger's Hill. Years had passed, but the town remained frozen in time. Boarded-up windows stared back at me like empty eyes. The silence was heavy, suffocating. It pressed against me, bringing back a wave of childhood dread. I had hoped to outrun the memories, but they were etched into the very fabric of this place. Granger's Hill was more than just a forgotten town. It was a scar, a chilling reminder of a past I longed to forget. But the past had a way of catching up. A letter arrived weeks ago. My grandmother's faded handwriting sent shivers down my spine. She mentioned a journal, a family secret, and the truth about my mother's disappearance. The old Victorian house loomed at the end of the street, its paint peeling like scabs. The porch swing creaked rhythmically, a mournful tune in the stillness. Inside, dust motes danced in the pale sunlight that filtered through grimy windows. The air was thick with the scent of decay and something faintly metallic, like old blood. Every floorboard creak, every rustle of wind against the boarded-up windows set my teeth on edge. Fear was a venomous serpent, coiling in my gut. I was back in the belly of the beast, and this time I was determined to slay it. I had to know what happened to my mother, even if it meant unearthing the darkness that clung to Granger's Hill. Granger's Hill had always been shrouded in an unsettling quietude, but beneath the surface, whispers of a troubled past lingered. The town was named after its founder, Elias Granger, a man known for his strange practices and reclusive nature. Locals whispered of rituals and sacrifices, of a pact made with an entity that dwelled in the surrounding woods. Then there was Hazel Green. A young woman, full of life, she vanished without a trace one cold November night. Her disappearance left a gaping hole in the town's soul, a wound that never healed. Some whispered of a jealous lover, others of a drifter passing through. But the prevailing theory was far more sinister. They said the Lantern Man took her, a shadowy figure with eyes that glowed like hot coals, forever roaming the woods with a flickering lantern. Legend had it, he was a harbinger of doom, a collector of souls who appeared when the veil between worlds was thin. Hazel's disappearance became intertwined with the myth, a cautionary tale whispered around campfires. My grandmother used to tell me these stories, her voice low and trembling. She believed in the Lantern Man, in the darkness that clung to Granger's Hill. Back then, I dismissed it as superstition. Now, standing in the heart of the town's eerie silence, I wasn't so sure. My grandmother's belongings were in the attic, untouched for years. Cobwebs clung to dusty trunks and forgotten toys. I found the journal tucked away in a wooden chest, its leather cover cracked and dry. My mother's name was etched on the front in elegant cursive. My fingers trembled as I opened it, the musty scent of old paper filling my nostrils. The entries were sporadic, filled with mundane details of daily life in Granger's Hill, but there were glimpses of something darker. My mother wrote of strange occurrences, shadows moving in the corner of her eye, whispers in the dead of night. She mentioned the Lantern Man, not with fear, but with a strange fascination. She called him a protector, a guardian of secrets. Then a loose sheet of paper fluttered from the pages. A letter addressed to my mother. The handwriting was jagged, frantic. "He's coming for you, Hazel," it read. "The Lantern Man doesn't forget. He's coming to collect." The words sent a chill down my spine. The letter was unsigned, but the fear it conveyed was palpable. The journal ended abruptly, weeks before my mother's disappearance. I was left with more questions than answers. Who wrote that letter? What did they know about the Lantern Man? And what truly happened to my mother on that fateful night? The days that followed were a blur of research and restless nights. The local library became my sanctuary. I devoured old newspaper articles and historical records, searching for any mention of the Lantern Man or a pattern to the disappearances. The librarian, a wizened old woman with knowing eyes, watched me with a mixture of pity and concern. "Some things are best left buried," she warned, her voice raspy with age. But I couldn't turn back. I was consumed by the mystery, by the need to understand the forces at play in Granger's Hill. The town seemed to hold its breath as the sun began to set. Shadows stretched, twisting familiar shapes into something menacing. The air grew heavy, pregnant with an unseen energy. People retreated indoors, their faces etched with a mixture of fear and resignation. One evening, as I walked home from the library, I saw him, a flicker of light in the distance, bobbing through the trees at the edge of town, the Lantern Man. My heart hammered against my ribs. I stood frozen, unable to tear my gaze away. The lantern swayed closer, casting an eerie glow on the surrounding woods. Then, just as quickly as it appeared, it vanished. Fear, sharp and cold, pierced through me. I wasn't imagining things. The Lantern Man was real, and he was watching me. Days turned into weeks, each one filled with a growing sense of dread. The disappearances in Granger's Hill weren't random. The town archives, though incomplete and disorganized, revealed a chilling pattern. Every generation, on the anniversary of Hazel Green's disappearance, someone vanished. Another soul claimed by the darkness that clung to this town. The names and dates swam before my eyes. The dates lined up perfectly. November 13th, year after year. This year the anniversary was just days away. And I had a sinking feeling that I was the intended target. The journal, the letter, my presence in Granger's Hill, it was all connected. As I pieced together the fragments of information, a terrifying picture began to emerge. The founder, Elias Granger, had made a deal with a dark entity all those years ago. Prosperity and protection for the town, in exchange for a sacrifice. One soul offered up every generation to appease the darkness. Hazel Green was the first sacrifice. But her disappearance wasn't random. She was chosen, designated as the price of the town's survival. And now, history was poised to repeat itself. The woods were alive with the rustling of leaves and the snapping of twigs. The air was thick with the scent of pine and damp earth. The lantern's glow beckoned me deeper into the woods. I couldn't escape the pull, the sense of destiny that had led me to this moment. The journal had mentioned a clearing, a place where the veil between worlds was thin, the Lantern Man's domain. Fear coiled in my stomach, cold and suffocating. But I pressed on, my hand gripping the iron poker I'd taken from the fireplace. It offered little comfort, but it was all I had. The trees thinned, revealing a circular clearing bathed in an ethereal glow. In the center stood the Lantern Man, his figure shrouded in shadow, his face obscured by the wide brim of his hat. The lantern in his hand cast long, dancing shadows, amplifying the fear that clawed at my throat. "You shouldn't be here, child." His voice was a low rasp, the sound of dry leaves crunching underfoot. I stood my ground, my voice trembling slightly as I spoke. "I know what you are," I said, my voice gaining strength. "I know what you've done." He chuckled, a dry, humorless sound. "This town made a deal, child, a deal I am bound to uphold. By taking innocent lives," I spat, "by perpetuating this cycle of fear and death." The Lantern Man sighed, a long, weary sound. "It is not my place to judge the terms of the pact," he said, "only to enforce it. But you can break it, can't you?" I pressed. "You have the power to end this." He turned, his lantern casting my shadow long and distorted against the trees. "The pact can be broken," he admitted, "but not without a price." "What price?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. "The debt must be paid," he said, his voice echoing in the stillness of the clearing. "A life for a life. Your life for the town's freedom." I stared at the figure before me, his words echoing in the clearing. He wasn't a monster, not really. He was a servant, bound to a pact made generations ago. A pact forged in desperation, in the name of survival. But the cost was too high, the price of safety measured in innocent lives. My mind raced, grappling with the impossible choice before me. To sacrifice myself to save the town, to become another name on the list of the vanished. Or to walk away, to let the cycle continue, to condemn future generations to the same fate. I took a deep breath, the crisp night air filling my lungs. Fear still lingered, but it was overshadowed by a steely resolve. I wouldn't let fear dictate my actions. I wouldn't let the sins of the past poison the future. "The pact ends tonight," I declared, my voice echoing through the clearing. "No more sacrifices, no more fear." The Lantern Man turned towards me, his lantern casting flickering shadows across his face. "You misunderstand, child," he said, his voice low and gravelly. "The pact demands a life, your life. He lunged, his lantern swinging towards me. I dodged, the iron poker feeling heavy in my hand, but I wouldn't go down without a fight. I swung the poker, connecting with the lantern. It shattered, sending sparks and shards of glass flying. Darkness descended, thick and suffocating. I could hear the lantern man's enraged growl, feel his presence closing in. Then a blinding light erupted from the shattered lantern. The air crackled with energy. I shielded my eyes, the heat scorching my skin. When the light subsided, the lantern man was gone. The clearing was empty, the only sound the rustling of leaves in the wind. I had broken the pact, the town was free. Exhaustion washed over me, but so did a strange sense of peace. I had faced my fears, confronted the darkness that had haunted my family for generations, and I had won. The journey back to town was a blur. As I emerged from the forest, the first rays of dawn were breaking over the horizon. The sky was ablaze with color, a promise of a new day. Granger's Hill was still shrouded in silence, but for the first time it felt peaceful, hopeful.